Hello everyone, my name is Nick John, and I decided that for my project, I will focus on the climate change debate, particularly in the US. The climate change debate is often described as a two-sided argument, mainly split between the liberal view and the conservative view. However, in reality, there are a various amount of arguments as to how climate change should be dealt with. With the recent election of President Donald Trump, mass skepticism has risen, questioning whether climate change will be taken seriously in the US or not. Some examples of the voices surrounding climate change are government officials who vote for or against legislation regarding climate change. You have climate change activists who strive to end climate change through pushing for legislation to be passed through protests or other peaceful way of protests. You have the economist's or businessman's perspective as to how climate change policies might affect the economy for good or worse. You have oil and gas companies that continue to be a driving factor in the emissions produced, gas emissions or emissions produced in the U.S. And you have, finally, the United States wildlife and habitats that can be very vulnerable to climate change. Some of the arguments surrounding climate change in the U.S. include the argument that eliminating companies that produce emissions could deeply affect the U.S. economy as well as millions of others, Americans' jobs, or just welfare. You have the argument that preserving wildlife and natural habitats is the most important way of battling climate change, and to do this, you must eliminate most of, if not all of, the emissions produced in the United States. You have the argument that some U.S. media/news outlets are producing false or uncertain information regarding climate change, and they argue that they're doing this to produce or push political agenda or propaganda. And finally, you have the argument that climate change affects the lower class the hardest, and more should be done by the government to prevent this. My personal investment in this essay is that I have always been fascinated by environmental science. Through my high school, I worked on projects inside and outside of school that involved cleaning local environments and just learning what I can do to preserve the environment in my own life.